She told me, "I only married you for the money." So I canceled all her credit cards. The words didn't land with the heat of an argument. They arrived cloaked in the mundane chill of a Tuesday morning, as casual as a weather report. The scent of expensive coffee and freshly squeezed orange juice filled the sunlit breakfast nook, a scene of domestic tranquility that was about to be atomized. She didn't even look up from her phone when she said it, her attention seemingly divided between her latte and a notification screen, her voice devoid of any emotion beyond a faint, bored amusement. "You were always a comfortable placeholder, Mark, a reliable ATM. Did you really think I loved your boring little stories about work or your pathetic attempts at romance? Let's be real. I only married you for the money and the security." Finally, she glanced up, not with guilt or malice, but with a cold, glinting triumph, as if she had just revealed the winning hand in a game I never knew we were playing. It was the most honest she had ever been, and it felt like a surgical needle directly to the heart. I didn't react. There was no gasp, no slammed fist on the table, no torrent of angry questions. A strange, profound silence descended upon me, washing away the initial sting and leaving behind a clarity so sharp it was almost painful. I simply looked at the woman I had shared a bed with for 5 years, the woman whose family I had welcomed, whose dreams I had funded, and I saw a complete and utter stranger. I placed my linen napkin neatly on the table beside my untouched toast, the gesture final and deliberate. I stood up, the legs of my chair whispering against the hardwood floor. "I see," I said, my voice so calm it seemed to belong to someone else. I turned and walked out of the kitchen, out of the house, and got into my car. In the rearview mirror I saw her still sitting at the table, a slight, confused frown on her face. She had expected drama. She had expected begging. My quiet acceptance was a response she couldn't compute, and that, I could tell, unnerved her more than any shout would have. I drove to my office, but I didn't go inside. I sat in the parking garage, the dim light washing over the dashboard. The initial shock had passed, and in its place was a cold, methodical fury. This wasn't a time for emotion. It was a time for strategy. Her confession wasn't a wound. It was a gift. It was the key to a lock I hadn't known existed. While she was undoubtedly enjoying her victory, preparing for her scheduled day of luxury, a spa day at the most exclusive retreat in the city, paid for with the platinum credit card that bore her name but was funded entirely by my account, I got to work. I became a ghost in the machine of her comfortable life, a silent administrator executing a series of devastating commands. The first call was to the bank. The personal banker who knew me by voice put up no argument when I instructed him to immediately cancel every single credit card linked to my accounts. Not just freeze them, cancel them. The platinum card, the gold card, the store-specific cards, all of them rendered inert pieces of plastic. The second call was to the corporate office of the spa. I identified myself as Mark Henderson and canceled her appointment, citing a family emergency. I didn't want her interrupted yet. I wanted her to enjoy her massage and facial, to fully relax into the illusion of her secure life before the walls caved in. Next, I logged into our shared banking portal on my phone. With a few taps, I initiated a transfer. I drained every penny from our joint savings and checking accounts into a new, private, high-yield account I had quietly opened at a different institution the week before, a nagging instinct finally prompting action. I left exactly $132.47 in the old account. But the financial severance was just the beginning. I had a deeper target. The sleek black Mercedes GLE that she drove, that she referred to as her car, was next. The loan was in my name, the title was in my name. I called the dealership where I'd purchased it. I spoke to the general manager, a man I played golf with. I explained the situation in blunt, clinical terms. My wife and I are divorcing. The vehicle registered to me and primarily driven by her needs to be repossessed and sold. He understood immediately. He dispatched a driver and a flatbed truck to our home address, instructing them to be there at 3 p.m., a time I knew would be perfectly inconvenient. The final piece of the puzzle arrived not from me, but in my email inbox. It was the report from the forensic accountant I'd hired 3 months ago, a discreet and expensive expert I'd engaged when her shopping trips started including large, recurring cash withdrawals that didn't align with her story.
I'd felt a flicker of paranoia then, a sense that something was off. Now, I knew it was intuition. The report was a masterpiece of damning evidence. It detailed not just her reckless spending on designer clothes and jewelry, but it meticulously traced a pattern of deceit. Thousands of dollars had been funneled into a secret second apartment across town, a lease signed under a slightly altered version of her name. The apartment wasn't for her. It was for her artist boyfriend, a man named Leo, who hadn't held a job in years, a man whose entire bohemian lifestyle, his art supplies, his organic groceries, his vintage record collection, was being funded entirely by me. The report included photos, lease agreements, and bank statements. It was a portrait of a double life, paid for with my trust. And then I remembered the pièce de résistance, the document that would make her entire world collapse, the prenuptial agreement. Her own mother, a shrewd woman who had never quite approved of me, had insisted on it. She'd wanted to protect her daughter from my middle-class ambitions. My wife had signed it with an eye roll, never bothering to read the dense legalese properly, confident it would only ever be used to protect her family's modest wealth from my potential failures. But her mother's lawyer, in his thoroughness, had included a powerful morality clause. It stipulated that in the event of proven adultery, financial deceit, or fraud against the other party, the guilty spouse would forfeit all financial claims, including alimony and any share of marital assets. Her confession, recorded on my phone's voice memo app as I'd walked out, coupled with the accountant's report, was all the proof I needed. She was entitled to nothing, not a penny. I drove home. I didn't pack my things. I packed hers. I went through her walk-in closet, her dressing room, her drawers. I didn't sift through memories. I was an executioner disposing of evidence. Every designer dress, every pair of shoes, every piece of jewelry was tossed into heavy-duty black garbage bags. I didn't fold anything. I treated it all like the trash it represented. I carried the bags out to the front porch and stacked them unceremoniously next to her prized rose bushes. Then I called a locksmith and had every lock on the house changed. The first call came at 2:45 p.m. It was from the boutique on Rodeo Drive. Her voice was a mixture of confusion and irritation. "Mark, something's wrong with my card. It was declined. Tell them to run it again." I could hear the clinking of hangers and the muted, polite confusion of the sales associate in the background. "There's nothing wrong with it. It's canceled. They all are. You should probably start heading home. There's a situation here." I hung up before she could respond. The next call, 15 minutes later, was pure, unfiltered panic. She was screaming, her voice shrill over the sound of traffic. "Mark, what did you do? The dealership is taking my car. They're putting it on a truck. Stop them!" I listened until her screams dissolved into hysterical sobs. "It was never your car," I said quietly, and hung up. The third call was from Leo, the artist. His voice was a high-pitched whine of terror. "Dude, what the hell is going on? The landlord is here changing the locks on my place. He says the rent hasn't been paid. Claire always handles that. She said it was handled." I didn't answer him. I just ended the call and blocked the number. She showed up 20 minutes later, disheveled and hysterical, in a taxi she couldn't pay for. She stumbled out of the cab, her face streaked with mascara, staring at the mountain of garbage bags on her pristine porch. "What is this?" she screamed, pointing a trembling finger at the bags. "What have you done?" As if on cue, a dark sedan pulled up to the curb. A man in a cheap suit got out, holding a thick envelope. "Claire Henderson?" he asked. She nodded, dumbfounded. "You've been served." He handed her the divorce papers. The top page, clearly visible, cited the reasons for dissolution: adultery and financial fraud. I opened the front door just enough to speak to her. I didn't hand her the documents. I held up my own copies. One was the bank statement from the joint account, showing the devastating $132.47 balance. The other was the first page of the forensic accountant's report, with the address of Leo's apartment highlighted in yellow. Her eyes scanned the pages, her face transforming from rage to disbelief to abject horror as she understood the depth of the trap that had snapped shut around her. "You wanted a bank, not a husband, so I foreclosed on you." I reached into my pocket and held out one single prepaid Metro card. "You wanted security? The subway is reportedly very safe at this time of day." I closed the heavy oak door on her piercing, animalistic shrieks, the solid thud of the new deadbolt engaging, the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. The silence in the house was no longer empty. It was finally, completely, and utterly mine.